Hey, we're live. This is Lock and Load on gun channels and the internet. This is Hawaii Volcano Squad broadcasting from the Big Island of Hawaii, Kona, and we got a show on submarines and revolvers, and we got some pictures. And you know, Winston Churchill said after the war, these are his words, that the submarines, the German U-boats, were the only thing that really put a scare into him during World War II, because they could cut off the lifeline of supplies from the United States. No matter how much stuff we had here at the United States, we had to send them on a ship to get to the UK. And so that was like this German U-boats were like a thumb right on the jugular of the UK's lifeblood. So, anyway, wanted to send a shout out because I got some prepper mail from the UK. So let's see, here it is. Let's see, a UK stamp. And where is it here? Prepper Dell, thank you. Mahalo. Down to the mailbox today, and it was there from, I guess it got here Saturday. And here we are on Monday, Hawaiian Standard Time. It's almost a little before 5, the regular start time. So that's Prepper Dell's channel art for his channel. It's like a UK prepper channel. Yeah, it's pretty cool. He sent me 2 of them. So thank you, sir. And give him a shout out. Check out his channel when you have a chance. Thank you. All right. So, you guys want to talk about revolvers first, or the submarines, or I brought my revolver today. Let's see, my GP100. It's a Ruger GP100 Wiley Clap Edition. It means it's got a radius cylinder. See, it's empty, safe, and I really love this gun. It's got a radius cylinder, really nice single action trigger. I mean, it is smooth, just really light. I love it. You know,
yeah,
I
like
don't know,
the GP100s.
I don't know why, you know, some people, you know, think you have to have a polymer. I don't know. When you were in the Marines, if you're a rifleman, if you had like your sergeant there, like Arlie Ermy or somebody like that, you know, you showed up with, you know, your rifle and your main battle weapon, but you had a revolver, would they make you change that out?
Okay, so the only time I saw revolvers was back in 93, I think it was. We were sending guys over to Somalia, and the Navy corpsmen, they were going to send a lot of guys from the clinic. They were going to send a whole group of corpsmen instead of just attaching the 2 or 3 that normally go with the helicopter squadron. They're sending a whole bunch of them over there, and they wanted sidearms, and they didn't have any sidearms for them. They found a crate of 38s in a warehouse that were the ones that they issued in the 60s and 70s to aircrew to defend themselves if they got shot down. So these are from Vietnam. So they issued these corpsmen these 38 revolvers. I don't remember what model they were or whatnot. Whatever the standard issue for U.S. Navy or Marine Corps was in the 60s for that. And they must have got them ammo somehow. And these corpsmen went to Somalia with revolvers. But yeah, you don't bring your personal weapon, so at least if you do, you're gonna have to sneak it in. So yeah, you couldn't be walking around with a revolver. But when I was in, your average infantry guy, your average rifleman wouldn't carry a sidearm, so they just had a rifle. You would get issued a sidearm if you were a staff non-commissioned officer or an officer. You get issued a sidearm if you had a job. Like when I guarded the ammunition, I carried a sidearm. Otherwise, I didn't carry a sidearm. If you were aircrew, you had a sidearm, something like that. So,
yeah, and medics, if you're saying corpsmen, so those are the medics, and they get to, I'm sure, carry some kind of sidearm because they aren't going to be carrying a rifle, I don't think.
Well, that was just it. I would think that they would too, but I don't remember, with the exception of that group that went over to Somalia with those old 38s. Like we had a flight surgeon and 2 corpsmen attached to our squadron, and they didn't carry sidearms. When I broke my nose, the doc was taking my Beretta off my cartridge belt with my Beretta and the holster off me before he bandaged me up and whatnot.
What's that have to do with your nose?
Yeah, he
broke your nose and he.
I broke my nose. Yeah, they didn't want to get any blood on the gun.
I see you broke your nose, so I'm gonna have to take your sidearm. I was like, what?
Yeah. So, but he come running out, and he didn't have a sidearm, so yeah, I was the one with it. So,
well, that's a good motivation for him to, fix somebody's nose so they could get there, run out to save you, so you save your nose so he could get a sidearm.
Yeah, be like, here, I'll take that. What about my nose? Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. Yeah.
So, are we going to talk at all about the UK terror attack, or do you want to skip it?
It's totally up to you. I've already heard some people's opinions around me, and I'm not really sure what to think based on just, you know how people are.
Yeah, well, I love, I like most of the people that I've talked to on, from the UK, and they're good people, and I just feel like, they should be able to be armed to fight back. I mean, if 90% of the police are unarmed and most of the people are unarmed, that's just, I mean, if like 3 guys with knives jumped out in like downtown San Antonio, I mean, and started trying, started screaming about Allah and stabbing people, they wouldn't last very long. People wouldn't wait 8 minutes for the police. It's like one of the saying, when seconds count, the police are 8 minutes away. Now that's not a bad response time, and the police did a great job.
Well, I've got a coworker. She's an American citizen, but she's from England. Actually, I have 2 coworkers that are originally from England, but they're American citizens now. And the one told me, she said they picked a bad place to do this at. She said because they're not very far away. There are heavily armed people there, for guarding government officials and royalty and things like that. She thought that the guys that took them out were SAS, and I don't know. I mean, I've never been over to England. I know about the Special Air Service and stuff. I mean, they're the ones that dealt with that. Remember that when the terrorists took over that embassy in, what was it, 1980 or something?
I was alive, but I was very young. In 1980. So.
Well, yeah, if you go look at the footage, and they're jumping into the balcony and setting off explosions.
I saw that on the History Channel, basically, but they have people that know how to fight. I mean, there's no doubt in that area.
But if you're not by a government building or somewhere the royal family is going to be at, there's not really going to be a fast response team. Is what she was trying to say, and she said they just picked the wrong spot. Well, okay, you're from there,
Terrorists aren't very smart, but apparently neither. I would trust all the British people, and the military, but the politicians, the bankers, the judicial system, them I don't trust. I mean, and what really got me was when first thing I turned on, there's I see it on the BBC, which is probably a mistake to start watching the BBC, but that was what was on, and they started babbling about gun violence, for the first, hour, and it wasn't guns, and guns don't commit violent acts. People do, but it's like, I've talked about this, Ed, but the Prime Minister of Britain, and she comes on the air and she said, "Enough is enough." Well, that was the name of a '90s rock band, but listen to what she said. Enough is enough. Brexit is Brexit. Lego my ego. I mean, what is she talking about? It's like, she can't. She's going to support, fighting ISIS in Syria, but she's not sending any soldiers to fight them. And if I was the Prime Minister of England, which I am not, I would, take those 3 dead terrorist bodies and put them on a pike on London Bridge and just let the birds eat their flesh. that that's me. You know, I mean, because they're fighting. You're dealing with a medieval fighting force. You know, and from an area where they're practicing medievalism. You know, I mean, they chop off people's heads. You know, and you know whether you choose, war is upon you in the UK, whether you choose to send your soldiers to fight or not. You know, and if the prime minister doesn't want to send the troops, you know, to Syria to, you know, you know, take care of the enemy with bullets, then you know, it's. I just, you know, I feel sad for my friends in Britain that aren't allowed to, you know, arm themselves, you know. But you know,
I had somebody else who was passing by while we were talking. She's an American, and she sometimes it's difficult to reach this one. I had to explain to her that if you have people who are openly armed in a place, it's no longer what they call a soft target, and terrorists or criminals are going to stay away from there. And she said, yeah, but doesn't it look bad, people walking around with guns? And I said, look at it like this. If the good guys are openly displaying their guns, the bad guys are going to know they're there, and that's deterrent enough, and that will usually keep them. They'll go somewhere else. So these guys look for a place where nobody's going to be able to fight back. And it might look scary to somebody who doesn't know anything about guns or is anti-gun, but I guarantee if something went down, knowing that there are people there, whether it's law enforcement or whether it's citizens who have the right to open carry, just knowing that they're seeing that around, it's going to put somebody at ease. But really, I mean, when was the last time somebody went and attacked someplace where they were openly armed? I mean, it doesn't happen very often. I just think the deterrence of it alone is something that people don't look at because they don't know. They see guns and they only think of what they see in the movies, right? But yeah. I mean, a gun isn't going to stop you from a bomb in a backpack. A gun, stop you, protect you. A gun won't, you know, but a gun would protect you, possibly protect you if somebody decided to drive at you with a truck or started
if you know the guy has a bomb, you could shoot him before he self-detonates, but you know.
Well, the other thing that I explained to her too is not everybody with a gun is out there looking to be a hero like in a movie. So, you know, some people are, but not everybody's out there looking to. I mean, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, and you know, if you think you're going to run in there and be Rambo, you don't have your head screwed on straight. But I just think that the deterrence, or just the possibility, if they're walking around going, this is an armed society. I mean, you pick San Antonio for a city there. I mean, I don't know that the terrorists would go to Texas just because it's kind of a misnomer that Texas, everybody in Texas is packing heat, whether they are or not. It's not. But I mean, it's just, you know, certain places maybe seem to be a little bit more well protected, and maybe that's
picked San Antonio because Edge of the Week's chat is there. I'm sorry I missed Edge's chat last week. Basically Friday night that was the second, and I was on Every Second Matters chat when Edge's chat was usually on, and so one of the gun channels chats on the second of every month is Every Second Matters, and this month they had on June 2nd, they had Brandon from the Firearms Policy Coalition, and they have a YouTube channel, by the way, but they're one of the California-based Second Amendment action groups. They're very effective. They do great videos, and they, you know, do great updates, and they do a lot of, you know, good work for the Second Amendment. And so they were talking about Peruta, which was like the case when I first came on gun channels like 2 years ago that I was really interested in and always posting links about, you know. And so G-Web sent me a link to join in because he knows that's my, you know, he knows I know the case and read all the filings. So I asked a couple semi-intelligent questions, and I think everybody thought it was a pretty good chat. But, you know, it's like watching paint dry, you know, and you know, they I know that the Firearms Policy Coalition's guy said that, you know, yeah, you know, I feel like we're just cheerleading and stuff, you know, and we really can't do a lot, you know. And then he says, yeah, cheerleading is important, you know, but it's really hard to be a cheerleader for watching paint dry, you know, because like again this week, in the Peruta case, they, redistributed all the papers and amicus briefs for a conference that never happened. So nothing happened, and then they redistributed it again. So June 8th, there will be yet another possible conference. And these, every week they redistribute all the papers for, to see if the Supreme Court wants to either deny the appeal or grant an appeal. But they don't just because they distribute the paper, it doesn't mean that all the judges are going to get together and make up their minds one way or the other. So, because maybe they're out playing golf or, responding to Trump tweets or something like that, but but it was a good, it was still, had a lot of information on Every Second Matters chat. I don't always attend all of them, but it was like one of the first reasons that I joined Gun Channels was because of that particular one. And they have their own website, Every Second Matters with the 2, ND, spelling it out. Or you could they have a page on Gun Channels too, the Every Second Matters page. But it's the second of every month. There's a chat about, what's up with the Second Amendment. And basically, again, this week nothing happened. They distributed the papers, and so, like I said, it's watching paint dry. It's hard to be a cheerleader for that. So, but we could talk about revolvers, submarines, the UK terror stuff. What it also got kind of, I don't understand why the mayor of London, that Khan guy, was, as soon as London is attacked, he's complaining about Trump or something. Doesn't he have anything else to do? His city was just attacked. Again, I think once a month they're being attacked. The UK is anyway, and it just seems like he has people to take care of, and arguing with Trump shouldn't be on the top of your list if you're the mayor of London. But I don't know how people in the UK feel. I don't live there. Arguing with Trump is like a sporting event, for the media here. So especially I'm on an island full of people that don't like the president. So sometimes I think they send all the people that don't like Donald Trump to Hawaii, and so they could be on the remotest possible island where you need a magical special unicorn ship that doesn't exist to send any goods here. On account of the Jones Shipping Act. But, I'm here too. So anyway, revolvers or subs, or I don't have too much else to say about, the UK, except to keep your heads down. If you need us, all you got to do is call President Trump, and he'd be happy to send the 82nd Airborne to kick some ass if that's what's needed. But I don't think you guys need that over in there. I'm sure you can handle it. It's just the only problem you just get the politicians out of your way and the people with the welcome refugee placards to give the police a clear field of fire at the terrorists. I don't know if everybody in England should take a fencing class, so they know how to fight with knives, and get a rapier. If I don't even think they allow those in Britain, but. Yeah. Anyway, so Jesse, we were talking about your revolvers. If you're out there, I can see your avatar.
Yeah, I'm still here. I have a couple of revolvers, a couple old Smith & Wessons.
You were saying you used to carry a Model 29?
Yeah, I did for a little while. It's more for giggles than anything else. Wouldn't be really practical, but I did anyways. Worked out nice in the woods anyways.
Why
you like
you
having
say
a big bore revolver?
Well, they're a lot of fun to shoot. And there's not much they just ain't going to take down in the state of Michigan.
Does it have enough muzzle velocity? In Hawaii, you have to have, I can't use this to go hunting. It's not, at 357, the barrel would have to be about that much longer. So it needs to be there's not enough muzzle velocity, or, in whatever the hunting regs say, pounds per square inch or whatever it is, I forget. But you can't go out with a snubby unless it's like a 44 Magnum.
The last I checked, I think Michigan was based mostly on the actual type of cartridge itself than muzzle velocity.
Right. It's got to be a straight wall, 1.8 inches or less, or something like that.
Somewhere around there. I haven't really did much pistol hunting up in Michigan. But I used to take my 10 millimeter out there once in a while, but
that'll do it. Hey, Ted Nugent makes hunting ammo for it.
I wouldn't doubt it. And the other Smith & Wesson I have is an old Model 28 Highway Patrolman.
I was thinking, after Donald Trump's second term, if he went, because I heard Hillary still wants to run again. I'm like going, oh my God. But, if Donald Trump wins again a second term after second term, maybe we could really piss off the liberals and run Ted Nugent for president. That would be so fucking awesome.
Yeah, I don't know that that'll work.
Well, maybe not, but it would be awesome. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted. Somebody said Ted Nugent.
It's all good. Now, that was about the only two revolvers I have, both recessed cylinders and pinned barrels. So probably more of the highlight of the old Smith & Wessons.
So the Model 29 and what was the other one?
Model 28.
28.
It was called the Highway Patrolman. It's actually was stamped on the side of the barrel. It was a cheaper model that was basically made for the police. So the Model 27, which was a nice gloss and nicer sights, and it was more of a cheapie for the actual police department. It's kind of like a Glock.
Yeah, everybody in Hawaii, all the Honolulu police switched to Glock 17s. So I'm hoping that there's a bill that I know that they were gonna switch the magazine limit from 10, to 17. They had a bill, but it didn't, pass or anything. But they might introduce it the next legislative session again, because I know all the police, if they have Glock 17s, they're not going to be happy with just a 10-round mag. So,
I'm actually happy to hear that the actual law applies to the actual police also.
Yeah. It should.
Yeah, if any police know the law. I mean, anyway.
Or they really care to enforce it on themselves.
I don't think that law has ever been enforced, I mean, the gun shops won't sell, a 17-round mag. They'll only sell 10-round mags, but I don't think it's been enforced, It's basically, it's a misdemeanor to have a 17-round mag, but if you insert it into the magazine well, it's a felony, So I know isn't that dumb, and so, but we have a lot of dumb laws around here, and I was like, I think I was the Department of Land and Natural Resources. They have a video channel on YouTube, and they had they were patrolling the Napali Coast on Kauai, and they had this video that they posted, because there's a lot of illegal encampments on this very remote coast, and beautiful and archaeologically significant coast, and there's just too many people living there permanently, and it's like the bathrooms, sanitation can't handle it. It's like a composting toilet that can handle 15 people maximum, and there's like 60 or 70 or 90 people living there, and so they have to literally fly in a helicopter every month and have some people dig out the bathroom shit and haul it out of there, airlift it out of there. But anyway, so the point is that they seized somebody's crossbow. They had a crossbow, and I said, this is an illegal crossbow. What's illegal about the crossbow? So, they seized it, because that's all they do. They seize stuff, but I don't have a problem with them, going out, taking people that are camping in an area where you're supposed to need a permit, and so that they can effectively control how many people are there, but just seizing people's, crossbows for no reason, I mean, it's saying this is an illegal crossbow in their video. I mean, bullshit. There's nothing illegal at all about having a crossbow. I mean, and, they're just confiscation happy when it comes to weapons. But anyway, that'll end my rant for about the DLNR for now. I mean, not getting into Ethan Ferguson or all, but he was convicted of, that's the DLNR agent that was convicted of basically raping some underage girl on the beach, or something. And he I think he claimed she was harassing a turtle. It turned out to not be true. So,
Well, hopefully he goes away for a long time.
well, he was convicted, I mean, so he'll be in jail with a lot of criminals who don't like child rapists. So,
And people of the law, I'm sure.
and I'm sure everybody's heard of that case by now, even in prison. So, justice is what it is. At least he didn't get away with all of it. So, so do you still use your revolvers, Jesse, a lot, or at the range, or just?
Oh yeah, I usually take them out every now and again. I usually alternate them between either the 357 or 44.
How long is the barrel on your 357?
It's a 6-inch barrel.
6-inch barrel. Okay, cool.
And then the 44 is 6.5.
Yeah, that's actually the only handgun you're really allowed, 44 Magnum or bigger, that you can actually use in a hunting area. So I can't take my Glock into a hunting area and just take target practice. And we don't have an indoor range around here, so there's no legal way to shoot it unless you have your own property. So that's way off in the middle of nowhere, and you won't bother anybody. And I am looking for one of those setups, but I still have my revolvers, but I mostly go out when I go out to the hunting areas to just shoot my long guns, because that's the only thing I can legally do. I don't want to have the DLNR show up and say, you got an illegal revolver, we're taking all your guns, because like they took that guy's crossbow or whatever, I try and follow their fucked up laws, but, and hunting regs, which are unconstitutional. But anyway, I still like my revolvers a lot. I'm looking forward to concealed carry. I got the latest edition of America's First Freedom from the NRA, and they said Bloomberg is spending $25 million on the Every Town Matters Second Amendment organization. So the NRA needs a lot of help to counteract Bloomberg. Anyway, there's the latest edition. Winning one for the ages. They're talking about Neil Gorsuch there. So I don't get the American Rifleman. I picked this one. Because you get to pick which magazine you want out of like 3 different ones. And so that's the one I picked.
I'll probably say there's probably maybe one more revolver I'd like to get. That'd be one of the old 45 service pistols from around World War II.
They had revolvers in 45 ACP or 45 Colt?
45 ACP.
Okay. I didn't know they had those.
Was it the Victory model, Smith & Wesson 10, right?
I think so.
Wasn't that it? Yeah. Did you use moon clips?
Or you can either use the moon clips, or you can just put them in singly, but then you have to have like a rod to knock them back out. We don't use the moon clips.
What about one of the ones chambered in 455 Webley?
Webleys, I mean, okay. Well, I mean, have you ever tried to buy a Webley? They're all old, and I mean, they cost a lot. They're pricey. I don't know. My dad wanted one until he found out how much they cost and, what condition they were usually in, so. He's got enough guns, he got more than he could possibly shoot. I mean, my dad is having his 82nd birthday pretty soon. I can't believe my dad's getting 80. I thought he was the 70s, and my mom says, no, he's 82. I can't remember the age from every birthday, but oh my God. So me and Squib were talking. We both bought a Father's Day card for our dads today for some reason at Walmart. I was at Walmart, and
Walmart everywhere.
Yeah, there is everywhere. So I was going to ask a name that gun question. I bet I don't know if anybody will get it. It's It's a gun. This gun was used in Edward III's 1340 invasion of Normandy.
Say what?
And,
Yeah, where's the mute button?
the mute button? You don't want to hear this gun?
I'm staying out of this one. This is going to be like the Indian Cannon.
It won't be that hard. I just saw it on TV today on the History Channel. Come on, guys.
So are we looking for like a proper name, the cannon, or a gun, or are we like going off of some nickname?
It was a multi-barrel, and it was on multi-barrel. It's multi-barrels, and it was on wheels, basically, it was used in by King Edward III in the 1340 invasion of Normandy. And any name will do. I'll look at the chat. So if somebody gets it, I'll say what it was. And then we'll go to submarines, unless Squib wants to tell us about his favorite revolvers, which ones he has and stuff like that. Let me see if I get onto gun channels and YouTube at the same time.
Well, first, let me give you a Dusty update.
Okay, Dusty was on his tractor, then he dropped out.
Yes. His phone died and he didn't have a charger. And he was saying that he wasn't sure if we could hear the engine in the background, his diesel engine. But no, I didn't hear any sound in the background. Did you?
No, I didn't hear any sound in the background at all. And actually, I meant to say he was in his pickup truck, not his tractor.
He's got why did he say no battery? Maybe he meant he didn't have a charger in his truck. Maybe he had one in his. I can't understand this. All right, no, he was talking about the diesel engine in his pickup truck. He's got the same engine I do, and I've tried jumping in a hangout while driving, and you can hear it in the background. It's kind of like a murmur. I think he just wanted to know if we could hear it was getting in the way. I know when I did it the first time, I was asking, can you guys hear me? Is the engine too loud?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems. So with Dusty's engine, he just dropped out. That's all. Yeah, there are gun ranges in Honolulu, and you can bring your own guns, but I don't live on that island, so it doesn't do me a lot of good. That I shoot in a hunting area that people use as a gun range, but if the deal on our show up, it is a hunting area. You have to be wearing your hunter orange, or that will be, if you're not wearing blaze orange, then a mesh vest or a t-shirt, then they have the right to seize your guns, because that's a violation of the hunting rules. So basically, if you sneeze and violate the hunting rules, they have a right to take your gun. So when the deal on our shows up, you want to be wearing orange, you want to have your license on you, and you don't want to have any, non-hunting caliber guns. Like if you're teaching your kid how to shoot with a 22, they're taking it, If you have a crossbow, they're taking it. Yeah, I mean, it's stupid, but,
I can see it now. Someone taking their boy out to shooting. Here, take this 30-06. Don't have anything else you can use.
Yeah, it has to be a hunting caliber gun with a certain amount of pound force, whatever it is. I forget what it said the measurement was in the regs, but yeah, 30-06 is fine. I could shoot my AK, I could shoot my Tavor, I could shoot my shotgun, I could shoot, my CZ 527 7.62 by 39, but none of my handguns qualify. So, I'm sure my 357 Magnum will kill a boar, but even though it is a short barrel, snubby, but that's not good enough for them. So, Jared got it. It's the Rebaltaquin volley gun. Congratulations, Jared. You win again. I'm sorry there's no prize, but I am getting, as soon as I get my new artwork, I'll get you a sticker.
You get two, because that word is really difficult.
Ribaldequin. It basically it's like
Say it 3 times fast.
no. It was basically it was like a fence post, with 7 barrels on it, and they so basically if one barrel failed to fire, then basically it could shoot like 108. It's like 7 shotguns, all firing at once, basically. So you could shoot like 108, shotgun shells out of it simultaneously. So it was a lot of whoop ass for the 1340s. And basically King Edward had fought a lot of battles and just stalemates with France, and he got tired of losing. So he brought those along with him, and knocked out of basically he was fighting French armored knights, with steel plate armor, and that shotgun shells will shoot through that buckshot, or I think they were shooting like the 54 caliber bullets in the demonstration on the History Channel today, but a Baldequin volley guns. They were on wheels, and they're just a bunch of barrels lined up. But 1340, they had guns. So I did contact Billy Barron, and he is doing some artwork for me for channel stickers and patches. So as soon as we get something, I'll send it out to you. But again, be patient with me because I don't even have the artwork yet. So and Billy's working on a children's book about a tiger named, I forget. So
Hobbs.
I can go look at his email if you really want to know the name of the book.
And Hobbs.
No. But he's a good artist. He's like 92 years old, and he's doing me a favor. So he's a good guy, and he's a conservative political cartoonist in his other life. He used to be Lee Marvin's publicist. He's a very good sketch artist. Anyway, so you got that one. Let's see. All right, so Squib, before we go on to subs, tell us about any revolvers you want to talk about.
Well, I've fired the GP100 before. I don't have one, but it's definitely something I would like to own. I've fired the Super Red Hawk, and that's a 44 Magnum double single, and that is really fun to shoot. What else have I fired? Fired a 38 Colt. But I haven't fired a snub nose yet, so I don't know how snappy those are. Right now I've got cap and ball revolvers. My next revolver is going to be something big bore, even though a 357 or a 38 would probably be better for my kids to shoot, or if my wife wanted to shoot. So I guess
I've never shot 38 out of my 38 special out of my GP100. I always just shoot 357 because I figured that I'm going to shoot with what I'm going to fight with. So, but if my dad's 82, I'm sure he would prefer shooting. He likes his GSG 22 caliber, little 1911 thing, and he's got an actual 1911 and prefers the 22. But he's 82, like I said, almost. Can't believe my dad's 82, almost, coming up in August. It's his birthday, so. Time really just zips right by, Okay, so you like cap and ball a lot? Do you shoot that much?
I like cap and ball revolvers, yeah. And
what do you like about it?
I realize the replicas are not perfect, identical replicas of the originals. There's a few slight variations, but they're about as close as you can get. And I guess I just like the antique feel, the whole. I mean, it's a lot of work compared to a modern revolver, and I like the historical aspect. I mean, the clouds of smoke sometimes can get in the way, but it's, I don't know, just something about the historical effect. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how history just, you get it's history is a really nice part of, collecting guns, the history of it all. That was the other saying that I was looking in the pre-chat for. That's the thing. The history teaches people that history doesn't teach people anything, you know? Okay, so I was thinking about that earlier. Anyway, so subs. Unless there's any, before we go to subs, let's see if there's any questions out in the gun channels or on the YouTube. Take a quick peek. GP100. Okay, not too much on the externals. So you're going to impulse buy your next revolver. Rattle trucks?
It'll be.
Garant says, what's a rattle truck?
It's a diesel engine. Diesels. There's something to be said about having a diesel engine. I mean, not every place sells diesel, and when it breaks, it costs a lot more to fix. But otherwise, though, there's so many advantages to it. I like having a truck with a diesel.
Okay. Well, I just got a regular
noise.
Well, I've got a Blazer, so a Chevy Blazer. It was in some of my recent videos, but it's got a sunroof. Need to get the air conditioning fixed on it, but I haven't. I've been buying silver and gold instead of fixing my air conditioning on my Blazer, because that would be like $1,600 to fix the air conditioner, I think, on it, because it's like totally broken down. So I've just been putting that off and driving with the windows down instead. Okay, so let's do subs. Let me get back to here, and I'll leave it locked on you so you can do your screen share. All
right.
Take it away, subs.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little history lesson. I'll start off with, I'll open with this and see, where's my screen share at? You are presenting to everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. It's doing that psychedelic thing.
Oh, right. No.
So,
there we go.
Can you see? Okay. So today we're doing a special kind of sub. It's not your average ordinary sub. This is the USS Growler, and it is not your typical attack sub. It carries cruise missiles, and I'm going to go over basic history of cruise missiles used on subs in the U.S. Navy. So, need to go into...
Oh, no, there you go again.
Yeah, there I go again. All right. So, I'm going to read off something that I come up with. So, we start off with the German Feisler F-103, better known as the V-1 cruise missile, was fired at England by launchers on the French coast. Crashed missiles were salvaged from the attacks. From the recovered components shipped back to the United States for evaluation, the U.S. Army and Navy immediately expressed interest in using V-1s to attack Japan in the final assaults of the war that were planned for 1945 and 1946. Although it was not employed by U.S. forces, the V-1 was extensively tested by the American services, and an Americanized version known as the Loon was produced. The U.S. Navy version, originally known as the KG-1, then later redesignated LTV-N-2, was deployed on the modified fleet submarine USS Cusk with a ramp for launching the Loon. And
so this was an experimental weapon back then, for the U.S., right?
Right.
Because,
so what they had
they had other ways of delivering ordnance.
Well, they weren't launching missiles or aircraft off of subs. The Germans did actually fire some rockets from subs, and the Japanese did have aircraft on subs. But we didn't have anything like that. We used our deck guns and we used the torpedoes. So this is a whole nother concept. So they were thinking that they might launch V1s at Japan from ships, subs, and land bases, and use them to soften Japan before the invasion. So here is an actual V1
Thank
flying
God
over
that
England.
invasion never happened.
Yes, yeah, because it would have been a lot of casualties on both sides, a lot more than the atomic bombs created. But here's an actual picture out of a British fighter's gun camera of a V1. You can see the Argus pulse jet there. And basically you set, there's gyroscopes inside, and you set the guidance system, and it'll actually control the surfaces and whatnot, and get to the distance and bearing that you give it. And then at that point, it cuts off the fuel and locks the flaps and goes into a nosedive. And we copied that. I think the American version had a slightly different guidance system, but otherwise we were just copying it. And here is the American copy. Now you can see it says Loon, but I mean, it's still got the Argus pulse jet and the same.
Why did they name it a Loon?
I don't know. That was just, I mean, they give missiles and planes funny names sometimes, but I mean, a loon is a bird. So, so the first submarine was USS Cusk, which was, I think it was a Gatto class from World War II, and they converted it. So here is the Cusk firing a loon off its deck.
It's a lot of smoke.
Yep. Yep. Actually, there's pictures of one of these tests where it actually, I think the first one didn't go off without a hitch. I think a few of these failed, and one actually exploded on the deck and created a fire, and they crash dived the sub to put out the fire. So, and the first successful, let's see.
Oh, that's funny.
The first launch was on February 12th, 1947. More shots followed, and the fleet boat Carbonero, which I believe is, let's see, there's another loon launch from the USS Cusk, and here's one from the Carbonero, and this is off of Oahu, Hawaii in 1949. It was similarly modified. The loon program ended in 1950 in favor of the Regulus I, the Navy's first operational submarine launch guided missile. So the loon was more or less for testing. They considered using it and whatnot, but it never made it past the testing. It was just too difficult. So they invented the Regulus. So
yeah,
between 1953, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that after they dropped the 2 bombs, they didn't have any more bombs to drop. So they just sailed the battleships up and bombarded Japan with battleship shells, you know, and sent in fighters to shoot everything up. So, you know, this would be like, you know, something, I couldn't see it as being used when they had battleships that could just blast away at Japan. You know, this was just, it had to be just an experimental test thing. And it wasn't like something they were trying to actually do anything effectively with.
It had enough merit, and I mean, these things are cheap to make and whatnot. It had enough merit that they proceeded with this all the way till 1950. So from 1944 to 1950, they were working on this and actually converted 2 subs to fire these things. So the Army did their tests on land, and the Navy did their tests at sea. So even though they didn't use them in combat, had the war lasted longer, they might have. I know with the battleships, you can get in and you can bombard, you know, 20 miles from where the battleship is. So, you know, 10, 15 miles inland. And the B-29s were firebombing the cities, and, you know, that creates a lot of damage. But the cruise missiles, if they get shot down, you don't lose an air crew. If you shoot down a cruise missile, you're not, I mean, a B-29 was very expensive to replace, whereas a copy of a V-1 wasn't.
That was the whole thing with German U-boats. And since we're on submarines, is that they were cheap to make, and, you know, and they only had like a 22-man crew, and they were very inexpensive to make, and they almost took Britain out of the war. And like the Bismarck or the Tirpitz, those were super expensive to make, and they weren't as effective as the subs, and they had like 1,200 guys on those ships. And so the U-boats were like a cheap, you know, it was asymmetrical warfare. it really was, and it almost worked for the Nazis.
Well, I would rather them fire several of these, and if they don't make it to their target, we don't lose any Americans, then, send bomber crews in there. And the other thing too is, these things are scarier than, this is a terror weapon. It makes a scary sound, and then it goes dead silent, and then there's an explosion. You don't know where it's going to fall. Granted, you see a formation of bombers coming over, and you run for cover too, but these things were scary.
Yeah. And, well, the buzz bombs in Britain were very scary.
And this is more or less the same thing. It's just a copy of it.
Yeah, you hear a sound that you've never heard before, and then there's an explosion. So that's a great way to scare a civilian population.
You hear dead silence while it's free falling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty scary. But from what they learned from doing this program, they invented the Regulus missile. The SSM-N-8 Alpha Regulus 1 carried a 40 to 50 kiloton W5 or a 1 to 2 megaton W27 nuclear warhead with a range of 500 nautical miles and flew up to an altitude of 30,000 feet. For comparison, the little boy uranium bomb dropped on Hiroshima, Japan in 1945 was 13 to 18 kilotons. So this Regulus missile actually had a more powerful warhead in it than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Okay, an Allison J-33 Alpha 14 turbojet engine powered the missile to its target after its two boosters were jettisoned. After such a launch, the Navy guided the Regulus towards its target by two other submarines, and later with a system known as Trounce, Tactical Radar Omnidirectional Underwater Navigational Control Equipment. Only one submarine was needed. Yeah, only one submarine was needed to guide it. So you'd have one sub launch it, and initially you had two other subs to guide it, and then later they got it down to one other sub. So you needed two ships to launch one missile, and that was one of its drawbacks. Regulus was first deployed by the Navy in 1955 in the Pacific on board the cruiser USS Los Angeles, which is what you see right here. And in the back, you can see barely, I don't know if you can see my little cursor, here's the Regulus missile. So they just added this later. This was a World War II cruiser, and they added this. They actually fired the Regulus. Yes, they fired the Regulus. They fired it off of several different surface ships for testing, but I think this is the only one that carried it as a regular weapon system. I can't confirm that because there was a lot of conflicting data as far as the surface ships. Most of the data I found was regarding the subs. So here's a picture of a Regulus missile launching off the back of the USS Los Angeles. And you can see it's just on a ramp, and right here, that's not the jet engine, that's the rocket. So on both sides, there's a rocket to boost it, and then the jet engine takes over.
That doesn't look like just a sub.
No, this is on the Los Angeles. It's on the Los Angeles. This is a cruiser.
Cruiser, okay.
This cruiser, so on the fantail is a Regulus missile, and here's a picture of that cruiser's fantail launching a Regulus. So that was the first ship that employed this. The first submarine launch of the Regulus occurred, wait a minute, how can this be? All right, my data's all screwed up. I've got conflicting data here. So I've got the first launch from a sub was in July of 53, but the first launch from a cruiser was in 55. Okay, I got that all screwed up. Anyhow, in July 1953, off the deck of the USS Tunney, which should be this right here. So you can see this is the hangar that they attached to this sub. They took off the deck gun.
Looks like they got that idea from the Japanese aircraft carrier sub.
Right, and that's what I thought too, because it does look like the same sort of setup. So, and that may be the inspiration. So, let's see here. 1955, Regulus became operational, eventually served on board subs, cruisers, and aircraft carriers. The last versions of the missile could carry a 3.8 megaton warhead, 575 miles at 0.87 Mach. Regulus phased out of production in January 1959 with the delivery of the 514th missile. The submarines that were slated to carry the Regulus included, here's a picture of the Regulus launching off the back of the Tunney. So you can see the hangar, you can see the rockets boosting it, and then it just covers the whole thing in exhaust there. Let's see. The submarines were the Tunny, the Barbaro, seen here, and then the Grayback, and you can see its Regulus missile here. It had 2 hangars in the front.
So this was basically the end of World War II after they got the designs when Germany was defeated, and they used them in the Pacific to try them out.
Right. So this is V1 cruise missile technology and probably inspiration from the Japanese aircraft carrying subs. And this is our stopgap measure. And back in those days, they spent a lot of money on defense to try to keep up with the Russians or outpace the Russians, and to always have some way to fight back. We were always trying to get the upper hand. You would say this is a lot of money to spend in a short amount of time, but back then they were doing what they could to protect America. So here's the USS Grayback. Yeah, well, a lot of technology come out of the Cold War. Here's the Grayback and the Growler side by side. They're sister ships, and the Growler is the one that I'm doing the presentation on. So let's see here. Tunny and Barbaro were modified World War II Gato-class submarines, while Grayback and Growler seen here.
I just want to say that historically, the primary use of submarines was to destroy merchant shipping of either the British or in the case of the United States in the Pacific, was they effectively, first they tried going after warships, but the casualties, the loss rate to the subs was too high, so they switched to Japanese merchant shipping, and that was very effective because that's why Japan had all these islands and invaded all these countries, was to get their resources. And so basically the submarines denied the Japanese industry that they were a resource poor country, and they needed rubber, all kinds of stuff from all these the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, all these places they had conquered with their army. They needed to send back the raw materials to Japan, to keep their war production going, and the subs denied them that. So in both cases, it was just denial of merchant shipping, and they were very effective at that. And until the U.S. Invented, the radar, and they could actually see the periscopes when the subs were running on the surface, they could be detected with radar. And that was like 3 years into the Battle of the Atlantic before the U.S. had radar and could actually see where the subs were. And that's when the Germans started really losing bad. And the last thing I want to say about submarines, because last week we were talking about our favorite war movies. We forgot to mention one of the best sub movies ever, Das Boot. The story of the German U-boat, Das Boot, or Boot, however it's pronounced. That was a really awesome war movie from the perspective of the German U-boat people, sailors and submariners. Awesome movie. If you haven't seen Das Boot, check it out. Anyway, continue.
Well, you say that in World War II that the primary use of the submarine was to deny these raw materials to the enemy, but ironically, both Japan and Germany used its submarines to transport these raw materials. In some cases, they transported troops and they transported materials. The Germans had missions to go out to the Japanese islands to trade technology with them and bring back things like rubber and zinc and things like that. And the Japanese sometimes used the subs to resupply the islands, and they would sometimes use them to clandestinely move raw materials. It's not a big ship. It's not a practical way to haul metal and rubber and anything else and parts for things like that. But the Japanese copied some of the German aircraft, the advanced aircraft designs at the end of the war, and they got the plans or the parts from
limited transport.
Limited
transportation, but it's very obviously the cargo capacity you're talking about is very limited compared to like a merchant ship.
It shows how desperate they were.
They were desperate. Also, it's like when all the golds that the Japanese looted, that they had to bury them on the Philippines. The story of Yamashita's gold. The general that they buried all the gold that they had looted all from Indonesia and Malaysia and on the Philippines because they were afraid to put it on a ship and send it back to Japan. They wanted to put it on a ship and send it back to Japan, but they knew it would be sunk. if they tried to do it. So they buried it. And it's you could just YouTube search Yamashita's gold. Anyway, proceed with the submarine lecture, Professor.
So the Barbaro and the Tunny carried 2 Regulus missiles, and the Growler and the Grayback carried 4 each. And here is the Growler with its Regulus missile, and here you can see it from above. You can see the two hangars, and here is the launcher. So the missiles actually come up, go onto the launcher, and then they fire the missile. And here's a picture of the stern, and you can see the doors here for the hangars. And here's the Growler launching a Regulus missile. These are the rockets that boost it. And then the jet engine takes over in flight, just like our modern cruise missiles. And then next on the list is the USS Halibut. And the difference in the Halibut isn't just how many of these Regulus missiles it could carry. It could actually carry 5, but it has a nuclear reactor. All the ones before this were diesel powered. Let's see here. And so the Grayback, the Growler, and the Halibut were custom made for launching cruise missiles, whereas the Tunny and the Barbaro were modified from attack subs. Let's see, from the late 1950s until 1964, the Navy operated 1 or 2 of these submarines on a continuous patrol in the Western Pacific, with a total of 4 or more missiles prepared for launch against targets in Soviet Siberia. The major drawback of the original Regulus was the use of radio command guidance, which required a constant radio link with the launch ship / submarine that was relatively easy to interfere with. The earlier missiles also suffered from restricted range, which required the launch ship to launch a missile close to the target and remain exposed until the missile hit the target. To alleviate these problems, the Regulus II missile was designed with an inertial navigation system, which required no further input from the launch ship or boat after launch, and a greater range through improved aerodynamics, larger fuel capacity, and a lower specific fuel consumption from its jet engine.
Well, I saw something on the Nautilus, the first nuclear submarine, and that when they did the first military tests, where besides after they broke all the records as far as how far sailing underwater around the world and shit like that, then they actually did a military exercises where, okay, we're gonna simulate a combat between the Nautilus and destroyers, and the Nautilus would just pop up, and show them the periscope on the radar, and then disappear, and then they could never get the Nautilus, because it was nuclear powered. It could stay underwater. Diesel subs had back in World War II had in the 50s they had a limitation because they needed oxygen. They could only run on batteries underwater for so long. The new Dolphin subs, they have solid oxygen, so they could actually run diesel underwater. And not on batteries, on diesel engines, because they have different ways to store oxygen. Yeah, something, the new German Dolphin subs, I know the Israelis have some of them. So that's kind of how I found out about the new German diesel subs that are world class. But so when did these nuclear subs, they started firing, which was the first sub that they started firing these missiles off of again?
Well, out of the 5 subs that they made to fire these missiles, the only one that was nuclear powered was the Halibut. And this shows you how the missiles were stored in the hangar and they could be backed out onto the launcher on the Halibut. And you brought up the Nautilus. That's in our next sub show. So I'll have a whole
we have another sub show? Okay.
Oh, I've got sub stuff. So here is a picture of the Regulus II missile. It looks a lot different than the Regulus I. You see, it's more aerodynamic. Yeah, it's got a cone here, and the air intake is like a scoop underneath. It's much bigger, and this is on the Grayback, which is the sister ship to the Growler, and you can see the door open on the hangar, and they're bringing it out. The Regulus II had twice the range and a heavier warhead. The development got as far as the Regulus II being fired from the USS Grayback in September 1958, which is this. But 3 months after the sub launch of the Regulus II missile, the program was canceled in favor of the UGM-27 Polaris submarine-launched ballistic missile. So here is the only Regulus II launch off of a submarine. And you were going to say something?
Yeah. I just want to say about the U.S. Navy in general. And, basically, like today, finally, after actually a long time dispute, Qatar has been like blockaded by all the Arab countries, the Saudis, the Gulf, the Union of Arab Emirates, because they've been dealing both sides. And, people were talking about, there's a lot of channels that follow precious metals out there. And they're talking about, well, the Russians and the Chinese want to, knock off the U.S. with the petrodollar, and the Saudis are, they want the Saudis to accept like yuan or some new Russian cryptocurrency or some gold-backed currency. But the thing is, when it comes to oil flowing out of the Middle East, the U.S. trump card that keeps the U.S. petrodollar going is that it's got a navy. And that navy guarantees that the tankers can actually go in and out of the Gulf. Because if it wasn't for the U.S. Navy, Iran could just snap its fingers and shut down the Gulf, or anybody else. But ever since World War II, the U.S. has, basically the waters cover 2/3 of the world, and the U.S. Navy, after the defeat of the Japanese Navy in World War II, the U.S. was, nobody ever it's a world-class power, world-class blue water Navy. And so whatever problems the dollar has, as far as people trying to supplant the currency, has the price on whatever machinations have with cryptocurrency and gold and currency, the U.S. Navy guarantees, military supremacy. Because economically, ships, people trade stuff on ships. You send a cargo full of, iron ore for, building things, or oil, or whatever it is, or goods from China to wherever, to Walmart, and it's just everything travels on the ocean. And, the U.S. Navy is like a tool of state power, pretty much. And it almost ensures that the dollar it has so far, it has been the world reserve currency because we've got a Navy. And, if it wasn't for the U.S. Navy, oil could be interrupted by almost anyone, the oil flow out of the Gulf, which is, the primary energy source, for the world. And so it's funny watching all the machinations that Russia and China are going through to supplant the U.S. dollar. But the Navy is really, it's just like critical to U.S. economic power. Anyway, so that's why I like watching all this stuff about the Navy. Besides that, I like guns and ships and stuff. Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
It's fine. It's fine. Even though the Regulus II was canceled at the end of 1958, the Regulus I kept going, and the last deterrent patrol took place in July 1964, which is 5 months before the Polaris missile patrols commenced in the North Pacific. The Polaris was the first submarine-launched ballistic missile. Polaris was conceived from the German V2 rocket. And
so Polaris was one step before the Trident?
Polaris, then Poseidon, then Trident.
Polaris, Poseidon, Trident. Okay.
Yep. So the Regulus gets its idea from the V1 cruise missile, and the Polaris gets its idea from the German V2 rocket. So, which was, I think it was the A4 is the actual designation for the rocket. I can't remember the manufacturer. But let's see here. So unlike any subsonic cruise missile, a re-entering ballistic missile was a target with no solution for the enemy air defenses, at least at that time. And the Polaris allowed the launch submarine to stay submerged while firing it, which allowed it to remain covert. Whereas the cruise missiles, they had to surface, prepare the missile, and then stay above the surface until the missile hit the target. So this was a big improvement. And the Polaris missile, if you want to see what it looks like, here is the warhead section taken apart. And this is at the Submarine Force Warfare in Groton, Connecticut.
What
And
years was the Polaris in service?
Well, let's see. It was operational from 1964 to 1981.
Oh, I love it when things work out like that.
Yes. So this is an early model of the Polaris that is taken apart, and it's in display. It's on display at the Submarine Force Museum in Groton, Connecticut. And then outside on the grounds, this is a later model of the Polaris missile that they have. And I think it's interesting that both of those weapon systems got their roots from captured German weapons. So the 5 Regulus submarines deployed on 41 deterrent patrols under the Earth's ocean over the course of 5 years. So this whole weapon system was only online for about 5 years, and that's not a very long time. So there's a lot of money sunk into it, but we had the upper hand on the Russians because of it for a short time. After which the subs were then stripped of all their missile firing equipment. Both the Barbero and the Tunny were scrapped. The Grayback and the Growler were decommissioned, with the Grayback being converted into a transport submarine from May 1969 to mid-1980, which means it can maybe transport SEALs or other Special Forces teams to distant locations and release them near the shore. Also, there is one place where you can see all of the missile systems I talked about all together. So this is Point Mugu Missile Park on the California coast.
I've been
Point
there.
Mugu is so you know where this is.
I saw the Blue Angels perform there when I was a kid, right before they had a crash and they all died, like a couple months later. But the Blue Angels were amazing. I saw them in person. I live. My folks have a place near Point Mugu. That's where their home is. It's not too far from Point Mugu.
How far north of LA is it? A few hours?
Well, Point Mugu, there's the state park is it's just to drive up the coast or up the 101. It's about half an hour past the San Fernando Valley. So where are you talking about from LA? I mean, it depends how bad the traffic is. If you're going up the 405, you're going to be in a parking lot at the wrong time of day. But or on the 101, especially now, it's getting worse, I hear.
Well, I've seen some of these missiles up close, and I know where some of them are, but I only found one place where all of them are. So you probably can't see it, but here's a loon right here. Here's a Regulus 1. Here's a Regulus 2.
Yeah, my folks live about 5 minutes from Point Mugu Park, but the state park, but they're about half an hour away from the naval base.
Okay. Well, I know this is right off the highway, and you can publicly access it. And then here is the Polaris missile. So
it's a big sucker.
Yeah, this is right there where anybody can go to see it. Let's see here. So the Grayback was converted into a transport sub, and then it was stricken from the Navy list in January 1984 and sunk as a missile target in 1986. The Growler was decommissioned and placed in reserve in May 1964, stricken from the Navy list in August 1980. The Growler is now preserved in virtually original condition as part of the USS Intrepid Air and Space Museum in New York City, along with an example of a Regulus 1 missile. The Halibut, I think I got my pictures out of order here. Yep, so here is the Growler being towed to New York City.
Yeah, there's the World Trade Centers up. What year was that?
This is 1988. So I don't know if they sent it out to dry dock and this is it coming back, and because every so often they've got to send it out to be worked on because it's setting in salt water.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is one of those trips back from dry dock or if this is, let's see, it says here, yeah, I don't have that information about when it became a museum, but it was stricken from their list in 1980. The halibut was converted to a test platform in 1965 and used supposedly in developing the DSRV, which is this. I'm sure you've seen this before.
On Hunt for Red October.
Yep.
The DSRV. So that's the rescue vehicle, the submersible rescue vehicle.
Sea rescue vehicle.
Yeah.
So supposedly the halibut was repurposed to test the DSRV, but some people think it was used for clandestine missions. But it just goes to show you can use the same equipment to, you know, I mean, it was already retrofitted with all kinds of junk on the deck. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. They had to do a lot of testing on this thing to get it to work. The halibut was decommissioned in June of 1976. And then we go into our next phase, which is in September 2002, General Dynamics Electric Boat received a contract for the conversion of 4 Ohio-class submarines, this one being the USS Michigan, to be refitted with 154 Tomahawk missiles. And what they did was, here is where they would normally launch intercontinental ballistic missiles from, and instead they converted these.
North Korea, eat your heart out.
You fit 7 Tomahawks in here, and they're loaded in there as what they're calling an all-up round, which means it's ready to go. The crew doesn't have to do anything to prepare them. They're ready to fire. The fins fold out, and the rocket fires, and it gets into the air, and then the rocket drops off, and the jet takes over, and everything's good to go. There's no prep. Once it's loaded at the base, this thing is ready to go. So they took 2 of these and they converted them to hold SEAL teams. I guess they could put their gear in here, whatnot, and then they can underwater they can remove their gear, whatnot, and then the rest of them carry Tomahawk cruise missiles. So instead of carrying, I believe it's 26 ICBMs, it would carry 154 Tomahawks. So what they did was they did a study in the 90s, and they found out that they didn't need as many nuclear ballistic missile submarines as they had, and they were going to decommission them. And they go, hey, wait, I know what we could do. Because they had done the Regulus 1, Regulus 2, and the Loon program, they knew the advantage of being able to launch cruise missiles from subs. So here we are today. These subs are equipped to launch cruise missiles and launch special forces teams. They can carry up to 66 special operations troops or other payloads in lieu of ballistic missiles. From 2002 to 2008, the U.S. Navy modified them into nuclear guided missile submarines. And what else do I have here? The USS Michigan went back into service in June 11th, 2007, and the other subs were the Ohio, the Florida, and the Georgia. And here is your Tomahawk cruise missile. And this is also, I had this in a previous lock and load when we were talking about the Tomahawk and the battleship, which can also launch the Tomahawk cruise missiles. This is at the Submarine Force Museum in Groton, Connecticut. And also, this picture here is on the wall in that submarine. This is a window, and that cruise missile is actually hanging up near here. And there's you're on the second floor, and you can look over, and they've got a picture of a Regulus 1 missile launch in that same museum. So that's that for an explanation of why the Growler is significant, why it's significant to preserve historically, because there's no other sub like it in a museum. So here's the patch for the Growler. You can see they've got a Regulus 2 missile right there. and it's at the Intrepid Air and Space Museum, which is in New York City. It's not hard to get to. Parking, you can pay for parking nearby. We parked in some structure right next to the UPS terminal, and they put her car in an elevator and took it upstairs, and you walk down to the end of the street, hang a right, and it's across the street. It's right there. So it was kind of weird for us because we had never seen anybody put a car in an elevator before. Going to New York City was a little bit of an adventure, but I wanted to go.
Never even been on a subway, so.
Yeah, we didn't do the subway, but maybe if we go a second time, we'll do it. But I mean, I knew the Intrepid was there, and I'd heard about it for years, so I wanted to go. And here you can see, here's the Growler, and here is the USS Intrepid. And you can see up on the Intrepid, they've got all kinds of aircraft. This is a different configuration than when we went. The SR-71 is still up here, and they do have a lot of aircraft that were made on Long Island. This one was made on Long Island. This one over here was, let's see here. They don't have any of the others, but there are some New York City aircraft there. They've got a lot of different aircraft, and the Intrepid, you can go inside on different levels and whatnot. And when you come in, you come across the street. So here's the UPS building. So we were parked right here. So it shows you how easy it is. You just walk down the street and you come across and you go into this building here and you pay for your pass. And when you get a pass, you also have access to the Growler. We decided to go onto the Growler first, and you have to wait inside this room. So there's actually a line that winds around, and then you go inside here and you wait even longer, and then you get to go on board the Growler. So
yeah, it's like a Disneyland, waiting for a ride. You wait.
Yeah, because here you can see. So this is the door to get out to go into the Growler, and you can see they've got one of the hangar doors open, so you can get in. That's how you access it. But the line starts here, and then once you get inside, you zigzag. And I mean, you're waiting, and then the line moves forward a little bit more, and you're waiting, and the line moves forward. So it's kind of like, man, do we really want to do this? But because we were kind of pressed for time, we didn't have a lot of time in the city. But I wanted to get on board this sub just because it was a unique piece of history. And once you get up close, you can get a good look. You can see here's the rockets that boost it before the jet engine takes over. And it's just got an air intake here, just like a jet of the, like an F-86 Sabre, F-84 Thunderjet or something of the time, right? And they got a little bit of information here. So it explains what I just went over in probably too much detail. And once again, I wanted to stress, if you're going to do this, you're waiting. You go across the gangplank, go down into the hangar, and once you get there, they let everybody pile up, and then somebody who doesn't know anything about submarines tells you something they read off of an index card, and then you go on a tour. And this is the inside of the hangar. So this will give you an idea. This is the inside of the door. So this door that's shut here, that's what it looks like from the inside. So we were standing up front because we were in front of the tour group, so I was able to stick my head around and take a picture. And then you walk down. They've got a lot of plexiglass to keep you from getting into too many things. You walk down and you go down these stairs, and at that point you're on your tour. So this gives you an idea of the size of the hangar that they would put these missiles in, and they could carry 4 missiles. And you're walking around, and we came down into the forward torpedo room, but I didn't get any good pictures of the forward torpedo room.
Oh man,
Yeah, I know. And then this didn't turn out so good, so I went online and poof, I found it. So this will give you an idea. So you are here. You walk in here. You come down this ladder well. Here's your forward torpedo room.
I wanted to see you launch a torpedo or something.
And then you work your way this way through the ship. And it's set up like pretty much any other submarine. You don't see anything really unique except when you're up on the deck and you're in the hangar. But still, it's an interesting piece of history. So you see they got the chart room and things like that, and storage is at a premium. All this old-timey stuff. I mean,
oh yeah, stop on that one for a second. Yeah, vacuum tubes. Look at the meters. Those are like I'm looking at the VU meters and the knobs. Those are all definitely, Western Electric style meters when Western Electric was a thing.
I'm glad that they're actually so well preserved. Missile Checkout and Guidance Center. Some of the stuff was labeled, some wasn't. Here's the head. It's always a shocker for people when they see that there's not a lot of privacy on a sub, there's not a lot of room on a sub, things like that. Missile Checkout and Guidance. Yeah, so I think
that's all vacuum tube gear. Thing about vacuum tube gear is it is a lot more capable of withstanding electromagnetic pulses.
That's true.
And since it came up real quick, I just wanted to say that, a lot of preppers are worried about electromagnetic pulse an attack and on the U.S. and what it would be like. And the thing about electromagnetic pulse, from what I've been doing a tiny little bit of research, they have to be, in order for it to be effective, it has to be detonated at like almost precisely, 25,000 feet. If they just detonate it like 100,000 feet over, nothing will happen. But at 25,000 feet in a cone with a small effective radius directly under, it will be effective in knocking out everything, but only in a small radius directly underneath the blast, and only at 25,000 feet. So if to take out the whole U.S., they would need a lot of explosions at precisely the same time at precisely the right altitude. And that's not something North Korea can do. No way. Russia could do it, but it's just so the solar flares could do it. But so I would be a lot less worried about that particular, unless Russia does something, in which case, Katie bar the doors, the world's going to shit. But as far as North Korea or Iran, they don't have that capability. And aren't going to anytime soon, thank God. Anyway, sorry. Electromagnetic pulse lecture is over. Back to subs.
Well, no, I'm glad you explained what the vacuum tubes were and kind of explained a little side note about, the advantage of having them, even though, they're fragile and, they're kind of outdated. There is a place for them.
There are advantages. I used to have audio gear. I still have it in storage that runs on vacuum tubes, and they have the really distinct advantages. And if you know how to set them up, and they still manufacture them even in Russia, and especially if you're like like a lot of the Russian jets had vacuum tubes in them, and if they were in the combat area where a nuke went off, its solid state could get wiped out by an EMP, but the jet, it would just fall out of the sky. Like if there's an EMP right over an airplane, then okay, the airplane just falls out of the sky because all the computer chips stop working. But with all this vacuum tube technology, it's like whatever, keeps going.
So these are officers' quarters, the best I can tell. Actually, the setup in here for the officers' quarters, and then here in the wardroom for the officers here, looks somewhat like the layout in. I think it was it Down Periscope, the one with James Garner that was on
Up Periscope, I think, or is it Up Periscope?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a lot of submarine movies on Memorial Day. I'll tell you.
We caught 3 of them. I'm glad you suggested it because I DVR'd 3 of them, and my wife and I watched 3 of them, and they were pretty good. They were pretty good, but I think it resonated more with her because I took her to 3 different submarines, so she had an idea about what it's really like to be on board one and what significance they have historically.
Yeah, what was interesting is when they made some of those movies during World War II, the Navy had to supervise it to make sure that they didn't do anything that would give away any secrets that the Germans or the Japanese didn't know already. So if there were some secrets, they had to be careful how they made the movie, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, it's good that some of the subs are still preserved if they need to use them for any future movies.
I don't know. I think they've made all the submarines movies. They've made so many submarine movies. I don't know if they could make any more. I mean,
So here's where the petty officers stayed, CPO. So
I think I worked on a really bad B movie, submarine movie called. It was a remake of Crash Dive, except it wasn't as good. But I flattered some of the actors when they were doing the voiceover at my studio. Anyway, CPO headquarters. What's the CPO?
Chief Petty Officer. But
Okay.
I can't believe they'd have this many chiefs on a boat. I would think it might be. Well, I guess you're going to have your senior chief and your master chief. So, yeah, this is
But only
this is
one
your
chief
higher
of the
ranking
boat.
enlisted.
Right.
Well, no, it's a rank. Like a chief in the Navy is E7, which is a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps. So it'd probably be E7 and up. They might let E6 in here, maybe. Here's Periscope. And here's where they navigated the ship. We didn't go up into the conning tower, so we didn't do that in any of the 3 subs we went into. So I'd like to get into one on a future trip. So here's where they fire the torpedoes, 4 forward and 2 aft. And this looks a lot like the panels that were in some of those movies we watched.
Yeah, those are definitely old era tube electronic kind of switches and light bulbs.
I mean, look at this. You got your handles. You just slide this right out of the rack and just slap something else in there. Sonar. And that looks like the sonar panel from the movies too. Even though those were there's a different class of submarine, I'm sure all the technology was pretty much about the same in the 50s. So I mean, this looks just like what they had in yeah. That's really interesting. So. Because I didn't really take a look at these pictures right after watching the movies until now. So
yeah, so across the Pacific, Operation Pacific, Run Silent, Run Deep, Up Periscope, and there's so many of them. Destination Tokyo, Torpedo Run, Destination Tokyo. There's so many of them.
Or actually, this is the scullery. This is where they wash the dishes. So
that was the first job I ever had in my life, was washing dishes at Hellman Elementary School.
Well, I'm sure that's easier than washing dishes on a sub. Here's a hatch. I know the picture's a little bit blurry, but look how heavy this hatch is in order to be able to seal off a section in case it's flooding. It looks a lot heavier, even though it's smaller. It looks a lot heavier than the ones on a surface ship. So
like
here's
some
the galley.
Serious steel.
You can knead a whole lot of dough here for making bread or pizza or whatever you're making with any sort of bread. I remember there'd be these big stainless steel bowls, and the mixers would just mix up these giant gobs of dough. And here is the galley. And you see, just like on the New Jersey, this one's got some board games built into the tables.
Oh, yeah. If anybody hasn't seen the Battleship, we did a Battleship show. So you can find that later and check it out. It's on the live streams on my YouTube channel. So, yeah, recreation.
Yep.
All torpedoes and no play.
Everything's much bigger on the Battleship.
I bet. Was that a coffee machine?
Coffee. This is for Dano, because he's got to have coffee.
I got to have coffee too, man.
Well, so there's the coffee. Let's see, this is up close of a rack, I guess. Here's the lockers. So here they got the racks, and here's the lockers. You can't carry a lot of gear with you on a sub. I mean, they've even got the lockers built into the wall inside the rack. So here's another blurry picture of a hatch. But
were the lockers locked?
We didn't try to open them.
Oh, okay.
We were in front of the tour group, and everybody was pushing us to go through the sub, and we wanted to stop and look. And I got to tell you,
stop?
The sub we went into, Philadelphia, they pretty much said, have at it. There was nobody there, and we had the sub to ourselves. It was a blast. It was so much fun. We could take as much time as we wanted. We could look at everything. It was really good. This one, we were kind of getting pushed through, and I was thinking, after waiting 45 minutes to get on this thing, here's the head at the other side. And in here, we got the machine rooms and whatnot, and this is where they distill water, the seawater, for drinking and whatnot. And I got to tell you, distilled seawater is the best tasting water I've ever had in my life. And this is one of the engines. So they had the diesel engines that would charge up the batteries. The diesel engines did not run the propellers directly. The propellers were run off of the batteries. But on the surface, the ship could travel faster than underwater, and the engines could run while they're on the surface. This one might have had a snorkel, though, so it might have had being able to run limited underwater, but you really don't want all those fumes and all that noise and all that while you're confined and you can't get any fresh air. You can't open the hatches. So,
yeah, I wouldn't do well on a submarine myself. But yeah, the German second model of submarine had snorkels too, so they could, run underwater longer.
And I'd imagine we got snorkel technology after the war at some point. So
yeah, you really ought to check out the new German Dolphin subs, though. They're diesel, but they've got, like, I don't know, solid oxygen, some way of staying underwater without a snorkel, and running on, a diesel engine. Check out that technology.
Wonder if it can get separate through electrolysis, maybe separate the oxygen from the hydrogen in the water.
Well, I don't know how they did it, but they did it.
Hatch. Another head. Okay, here's the aft torpedo room. So here you get to see they had 2 tubes aft. They had 4 forward and 2 aft.
And the enemy below, I saw that one with Kurt Jurgens and Robert Mitchum. It's always Ein, zwei, torpedo los.
There was one called, I think it's called Below, from 2008. It's a horror film on a World War II sub. I saw that once while on a flight out to Las Vegas.
Have you ever seen the Bedford incident? I emailed you about that one with Richard Widmark and
no.
Sidney Poitier. That was a good one. And boy, it had as a hospitalman, as a bit role, Donald Sutherland had a bit role in that one. It was,
so you can't really make it out, but here's the railing. You're going to come out. You're going to go up the ladder well up onto the fantail. And they got a covering here for you to come out on. That obviously was not on the sub originally. And you come out on the fantail of the Growler. And from the fantail, you can look and see the conning tower, but you can't, they got this chain to stop you. So I let it stop me instead of going across because I wasn't getting kicked out of there. I spent too much money. But if nobody was around, I would have got closer and taken some better pictures.
Yeah, you should get a picture of you standing on the conning tower.
I do stuff like that when we're on vacation sometimes. My wife's always going, get out of there. You're going to get in trouble. Here's an up close to the conning tower from the dock.
Say that to a dog, you're going to get in trouble.
So you can see you come out here and get back on, and then you can go to the aircraft carrier. If you don't want to go on the Growler, you don't have to. You can go right to the aircraft carrier. But if you're there, if you don't mind waiting in line and waiting, if you've got kids that can be patient, then
is there such a thing?
My kids were really good on this trip. I gotta give them props. They were really well behaved on our trip. I think they liked going to see so many different military ships on one trip, so it was really kind of neat. So, and so you can see the distance here. There's the tour group getting on to go in, and there's the Regulus missile, and there's a conning tower, and here's coming off the fantail. So,
very
and
cool.
you can see from there, and that's from back. This is I don't know. I was standing somewhere, so that's that. So there's my presentation. There's one of my submarine presentations. That's on the USS Growler. And let's stop screen sharing before.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So
Congratulations. We got through that. Wow.
we got through that.
Welcome back, Jesse. Any comments on all of this?
I dropped twice. It's quite interesting. I actually was on a submarine up in Wisconsin, USS Kobe. And that's actually rather interesting. It's an old Belay or Gato class World War II submarine also. Unfortunately, the first time I went there just before one of the actual original crew members showed up. So, and he usually sits down there and gives like a tour.
Hey, Jesse, I've been meaning to ask you a non-submarine question, but go ahead, finish about the submarines first.
But it's a very interesting experience there. They do actually have an overnight program at that one up in Wisconsin where you can actually stay in the submarine overnight. I actually thought about it once or twice. And I guess they actually do give a tour of the actual conning tower if you actually stay over. At least they did.
Nice.
You were the person who bought one of those Mickey Hartman optics, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever get it, and how's it working?
Well, I actually have it. I don't really have it on a gun at the moment, but it works all right from what I can tell.
That's not what I wanted to hear, but okay.
I'm still waiting for that Desert Tech to actually arrive if it ever gets here this year or century. That's where I plan on sticking on there first.
All right. I swear the Mickey Hartman thing is. I gave up on trying to deal with it anymore. I mean, people watch that video on my channel, those Mickey Hartman optic videos, and whenever they ask me questions, I always say I'm waiting for Jesse, and it's like.
I can say this: their default that for time off of 10 seconds is rather too quick if you're actually going to use it, and you have to point down like a stairwell. Going off within 10 seconds of looking down a stairwell, if you're waiting for someone to come up, is not very good. But it is switchable to 10 minutes, which is a better side.
Okay, you're talking about the automatic off when
Yeah.
you point the thing down and okay. All right. Well, I'm still sticking with my old one because it works on my Tavor, and I'm not in any panic rush to buy a new one. The old one works fine for me. Can't wait. I haven't taken on my Tavor shooting in a while. The last time I got kind of rained out, so I didn't get to shoot that. I was just shooting all my other guns before the rain came in, and I packed it in. Okay, so we did revolvers. We did subs. I'm going to check out the external real quick. I see Dano there. Dano, you missed the part they have a coffee machine on the sub. I bet you didn't know that. It looked like a big coffee machine, too. I mean, I bet coffee made that sub go. Nothing works without coffee, man. Yeah. Okay, let's check the gun channel side real quick. I see Patrick Durand out there. Enriquez is out there. I'm trying to read everybody's comments. Wait, they can play football on the deck of a submarine? Okay. Oh, you're talking about the Intrepid. Okay, yeah, that's a bigger deck. Battle of Midway was on June 2nd, I believe. At least that's when it started, and so we just passed that on, I think, Friday. Another anniversary. That was when the carriers that bombed Pearl Harbor got sunk by the U.S. Navy, who got very lucky. And a submarine was involved in that because basically that's how the McCluskey's bombers found the Japanese carriers, was by because I forget which submarine it was. It had fired a few shots at the carriers, and the Japanese sent a destroyer to deal with the submarine, the U.S. submarine, and then the submarine got away, and the Japanese destroyer dropped a few depth charges and then steamed back at maximum speed to help defend the Japanese fleet. And the bomber pilots, the dive bomber pilots from, I don't know, I think the Enterprise, just they saw that Japanese destroyer speeding back, and they followed that and found the carrier. So submarine did play an important role in Battle of Midway. Talk about tomorrow. What's G-Web's? What's tomorrow, G-Webs? Midway is in California somewhere, right? No, Midway is like part of the Hawaiian archipelago. It's like in between.
No, not the island, the ship.
The ship. Oh.
The ship. They've got a frog. So
if they move the island to California, nobody told me.
They're one of the few museums that has a frog, so I want to go to the Midway.
A frog?
A frog.
You mean a frogman suit or something?
No, the CH-46 Sea Knight. Nobody calls it a Sea Knight. It's a frog. Okay.
So it's a helicopter.
It's like a smaller version of the Chinook.
Ah, okay. The Normandy landings, codenamed Operation Neptune, were the landing operations of Tuesday, 6 June 1944. Okay, tomorrow's the day of the Normandy landings?
D-Day.
No, today is.
Today is. Oh, okay. Well, I asked a Normandy question for the gun of the day. But it was about the 1340, the year 1340 invasion of Normandy by King Edward III. It was a prior invasion. Not enough Navy. Well, I did talk about the Navy. Well, this has been a Navy show, but hey, I live on an island in the middle of the Pacific, so the Navy is like the preeminent. You know, there was a lot of Navy on the invasion of Normandy. That's for sure.
G-Webs, it's been the 6th of June for 41 minutes now. Don't you know time is the same everywhere?
Not in Hawaii. It's 6:41 p.m. in Hawaii, and you know.
No, time is the same everywhere. It's 41 minutes past midnight.
But what time did the invasion begin? Let's put it. I know it didn't begin.
6 a.m. I think.
6 a.m. Oh, okay. Well, the invasion hasn't begun yet. So, is somebody doing a show tomorrow?
France is 6 hours ahead of us, right?
Wait, you just said the time is same everywhere, but now France doesn't count?
Yeah. So
is this the Paris Accord?
Because of France. Yes, because of that.
They better behave themselves, or we'll give Paris back to the Germans. But let's see.
Okay, apparently we're time traveling here in the live chat. So,
is somebody doing a show tomorrow on, or should I just keep this one going until the invasion of Normandy has completed or something? It's not. Is somebody doing a Normandy invasion show? Or should everybody just pull out a copy of Saving Private Ryan? Jeez.
I think I'll watch Band of Brothers instead.
Band of Brothers?
I will tell you this about Saving Private Ryan. My great uncle was there, and he said that movie was the most accurate depiction he's ever seen of the actual invasion. So I got that straight from a veteran.
Yeah, the bad thing about war is that people die. That's rule number one. Rule number two is you can't change rule number one. Good people die in wars. And usually it's civilians, but, you know, everybody dies. Yeah, you know, I'm glad we have peace with Japan now, you know. They did some terrible, the government did some terrible things, and karma bit them back hard. And but we have peace now, and let's, you know, peace is the best thing. You know, grid up, peacetime. we got space. We got when the grid is up and we have peace. Then you practice all those Judeo-Christian ideals. Be good to one another, and because when the war starts and the bombs starts dropping, everything changes just in a moment, and it's insanity. People kill each other because they're wearing different uniforms. With all the how much is Night Stripe paying me? Night Stripe doesn't pay me.
Not you.
Oh, Patrick?
Yeah. He's saying hit or miss Tuesday nights, 9:00.
Oh, jeez. I was talking I was on the Every Second Matters, and in the after chat, we started after the main chat was over, there was an after chat, and we started arguing about the stuff about that Matt said, and G-Web's left because he didn't want to argue about like the pre-election 2016 arguments, but that had to be finished about Matt, telling people to vote for third-party candidates instead of Trump. So he left and went to the lobby, and then, I think Nice Strike said that I said I liked Assassin's Creed, and he didn't like it because it wasn't like the game or something, but, whatever. I liked it. I didn't play the game. I just liked the movie. So, okay, you've got we did our promo for tomorrow's show for Night Strike. And he better fucking cover Normandy, or somebody better cover Normandy, or should we just raid the lobby?
No, don't let him cover Normandy. I got to talk to him. He don't know jack about the military. Every time he talks about the military, I'm listening on the other end, yelling at, really yelling at the wall.
I don't want to insult other people that do shows, so I'll just say that there's a lot of good shows on gun channels. Every Second Matters is one of my favorite ones. That's why I joined gun channels. Every Second Matters is on the 2nd of every month, and they talk about whatever the current Second Amendment issues are. And he's had some great guests on there. Sometimes last time they had Firearm Policy Coalition, and he can't always land like a primo Second Amendment guest, but he the real world, he does the best he can, and it's worth checking out. Sometimes it's watching paint dry. It's like every show. Some shows are great, and some shows are we get muddled through them.
Oh no, I just like to give Night Strike a hard time. That's all. But yeah, no, he doesn't have his military facts straight. Otherwise, though, Hit or Miss is an entertaining show. I mean, tune in for Smeggy's musical talent. Definitely.
Smeggy's the guy who looks like a ball of cotton for his avatar. One ball of cotton sitting on another ball of cotton or something. I know there's a reason for that, and I forgot what it was, but
because he's a snowman.
He used to be a cocaine dealer. Okay.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that.
Oh, well, that's what snowmen were, right? I mean, but maybe it means.
Well, in Hawaii, else. Where there's no snow.
There's snow up on Mauna Kea, and where the telescopes are.
Yeah.
All right. So, are there any questions from gun channels or the YouTube external before we close out this week's show? Let's see. I'm trying to keep punching up all the right pages, pressing all the right buttons. Been to sea on a 637 out of Charleston. What's a 637?
Got me. Somebody translate for us.
That's just Dano's comment in the external YouTube. I've been to sea on a 637 out of Charleston. I don't know what a 637 is. And Dano isn't typing yet. I'll give him a minute. All right. So,
Did they have coffee?
Does it have coffee? Well, my only experience, I have very limited experience at sea. One was on a Catalina 28 foot, and the other one was on a big cruise ship. with stabilizers and coffee and a gym and everything and a casino. Norwegian Cruise Lines, I think it was.
So if you reported aboard a sub, would you get about halfway through before you go, hey, where's the casino?
Where's the casino? Well, now I'd be like, where's the poker game? Anybody playing poker? They got to play poker on ship. You were on board a ship. Did you guys play poker, right?
Yeah, we played poker.
Well, what did you bet? Like pennies or potato chips?
I know we didn't have a whole lot of money, so I remember we left the poker chips on the ship, and we wanted to play poker, and we were up in the French Alps, and they said, well, what are we going to do? We left the poker chips on the ship, and the ship was in Italy, and somebody said, well, why don't we use the ammunition? So that's what we did. We used shells for poker chips. It was pretty fun.
That would be pretty cool.
French wine and
shit hit the
French
fan situation. That would be pretty cool.
Yes.
Shit hit the fan situation poker game instead of money or gold, and people just betting ammo.
So, what kind of cartridges do you actually have for chips? I mean, there's chips for $1, $5, $10, and so on. So, how did you classify?
We had 9mm, 308, 5.56, 20 Mike.
Were they all worth the same, or were some ammo worth more than others?
We didn't use the 20mm because it was electrically primed, so you don't mess with that. So yeah, we just had 3 calibers, but we just sort of winged it.
All right.
Well, and the 308 we had the standard ball round, the M80 ball, and then we had the tracer, which had a colored tip. So.
Well, if anybody ever comes up to Hawaii, we'll have. I mean, I did a video. I think it's on my of like poker with my green tips. That was pretty funny. It's on the Gun Channel's Hawaii V Squad page, gunchannels.com/HVS, and it's on my YouTube channel, the green tips video, with just like on a poker table with just green tips, but. That'd be pretty fun to play a poker game with just ammo. Anyway, so check that out. And so we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you. Dusty was here earlier. Thank you, Jesse James and Squib and everybody for coming by. And thank you, Prepper Dell, for your really cool. I'm going to show it one more time. Where did it go? If I can find it. 1 second here. Here's the envelope. Jeez. I'm so unorganized. Maybe you just have to go back to the beginning then. Sorry. That didn't work. Okay. Anyway, so thank you, Prepper Dell, for sending me your channel sticker. I showed it at the top of the show. So check that out. Check out Prepper Dell's channel. He's a UK prepper, and he sent me his channel patch or stickers for his channel. And I'm getting to the artwork for Hawaii Volcano Squad, and done in the not too distant future by Billy Barron. So look for some HVS unlock and load stickers and patches and stuff in the not too distant future. Check out gunchannels.com. It's a great place for the Second Amendment. It's free to join. If you want to meet a lot of other YouTube people who like guns, it's a place to do that. And it's like a Second Amendment platform for people who like guns. All right, so check that out. And signing off from the Big Island of Hawaii. And thanks again to Squib and Jesse James and Dusty, who was on here for a little while, and all the people at Gun Channels. See y'all next week.
Everybody have a good night.
Yep.
Later.